Hello guys and gals, and welcome back to the channel. Today I've got another teamwork build for you guys. And again, we're using the Dragon Ancestry from the Battlezoo Ancestry's Dragons book. I did a warrior, so now it's time for me to do a spellcaster. And what better spellcaster to do for this channel than the Bard? So if you're liking what you're seeing, like, subscribe, ding that bell, and let's get into the builds. So of course we're playing a Dragon Ancestry. But for our heritage, we're going to go with the Havoc Dragon. Havoc Dragon gives us training in performance, but since we're already trained in performance from our Bard, we're going to get something else. Havoc Dragon will also give us the Virtuosic Performer skill feat. This of course will give us a +1 bonus on certain types of performances, depending on what we pick. Once we become a master in performance, that bonus will increase to +2. It'll also give us access to a sonic breath weapon and horn and tail unarmed attacks if we take the right feats. We are going to be gaining both of those, but it's that breath weapon that's the most important. And lastly, and most importantly, we can choose charisma for our first ability boost instead of the normal strength. For our background for this build, we're going to be going with, from Knights of Lastwall, Sentinel Reflectance. No cause for alarm will help our allies when they do get hit by those fear effects. As I said before, the class we're building is a Bard, and we're going to go with the Maestro Muse. Maestro is the best Bard for what we're trying to do, which is buff the party. But we're also going to need another Muse, but I'm going to talk about that later in this video. The starting ability scores for this build should be Strength 10, Dexterity 16, Constitution 12, Intelligence 10, Wisdom 12, and Charisma 18. We need Dexterity for our survivability, especially since we're playing a dragon. Also, we need our Charisma to be high because we're not just going to be buffing allies. We're going to be debuffing enemies too, and that necessitates high Charisma for high saves. So of course, we gotta start with where it all begins. First level. Thanks to our Maestro Muse, we'll automatically get Lingering Composition. This will allow us to increase the duration of our composition cantrips, which we're going to have quite a few of them. Then for our Ancestry feat for this level, we're going to take Dragon Breath. This will give us a 15-foot cone that deals 2d4 sonic damage. Right now, this is just damage. However, we're going to take a feat later on that will allow us to debuff enemies with our Dragon Breath. And of course, we're bards, we do get spells. However, I'm going to talk about those a bit later in this video. At level 2, we'll start with Multifarious Muse. This will give us a second Muse. And we're going to pick up the Warrior Muse because we need it for a few feats we're going to be taking later on. The Maestro and Warrior Muse actually work very well together. And of course, the Warrior Muse will give us access to martial weapons, which will allow us to use that longsword or flail or whatever martial weapon we want. And on the free archetype side at this level, we're going to take the Dragon Mage Dedication. Another reason that we're picking the Havoc Dragon is it gives us access to divine spells with this dedication. Meaning we can now cast the heal spell, which is just a less powerful but more versatile version of Soothe. We also have access to divine spells that aren't on the occult list, like the Stabilize Cantrip. I mean, right now all we get is cantrips, but we're going to be getting other spells from the divine list too in this build. Moving on to level 3, we get a general feat. And we're going to need the Change Shape feat. That means we need to take Ancestral Paragon. We certainly don't want to be walking into town as a dragon. That would be extremely bad. But we also want to keep our dark vision for this build. So we're not going to be able to do what we did for the other build, which is take it at first level at the expense of our dark vision. We're Bard. We're going to want to be in our human form most of the time. Not only will this allow us to interact with the townspeople more freely, but it's also a great way to deceive foes into thinking we're just a Bard. Granted, we are going to have to go into our dragon form in order to use our Dragon Breath weapon. However, we're going to want to focus on our Bard stuff mostly. But if there's a group of enemies that are giving the party trouble, that's when maybe we want to go into our dragon form and hit them all with a breath weapon. And remember, we can change into and out of our form as much as we want. And we can stay in our humanoid form indefinitely if we want to. At 4th, we'll pick up Inspired Defense. This will give us the Inspired Defense composition cantrip. This will give us and all of our allies within a 60-foot emanation a +1 to saving throws and AC. In addition, they also gain resistance equal to half the spell's level to physical damage. So, if the party needs to get defensive, we can use this. Then on the free archetype side, we'll want to take basic Dragon Mage spell casting. This is simply just more divine spells, and works like any other basic spell casting feats. At 5th, we get our ability score increases and ancestry feats. For our ability score increases at this level, we want to increase our dexterity, our constitution, our wisdom, and our charisma. And for our ancestry feat, we'll pick up Draconic Verve. This will give us a +1 bonus on saving throws against effects that would give us the paralyzed or sleep conditions. Because either of those conditions takes us out of the fight completely, and any party member taken out of the fight is always bad. In addition, if we do get hit by one of those effects, for more than 2 rounds, we reduce the duration by 1 round. 6th, we'll start with Defensive Coordination. When we use this feat and then we cast Inspire Defense, we can raise a shield, but more importantly, one of our allies can raise a shield. Like, for instance, that champion in your party who didn't raise his shield on his turn. This is especially helpful when the champion has one of the 2 feats that give them an extra reaction. Then we'll take Breath Magic. This will allow us to change the area of any of our divine spells to the area of our breath weapon. We do have to be able to use our breath weapon, but if we need to heal a bunch of allies without healing enemies, we can do a 3-action heal and use this and heal all allies in a 15-foot cone instead of healing everything in a 30-foot emanation. There are plenty of other divine spells that are good for this build that have an area, and we can use this feat with them to avoid the creatures we want to avoid and hit the creatures we want to hit. At 7th, we get a general feat, so we're going to go with Canny Acumen for our Fortitude saves. Pretty simple. I know I normally do a teamwork report here, but this build is so simple that I don't think I even need to do one here. So for level 8, we're going to take Inspire Heroics. This will give us the focus spell of the same name. This will allow us to possibly increase the bonus of our Inspire Courage or Inspire Defense to +2 or even +3 if we get a critical success. Then on the free archetype side, we'll take Draconic Breadth. This is just like other breadth feats from other archetypes. So, more divine spells, yay. At level 9, we get another Ancestry feat, and we're going to go with Antipodal Duality. This will give us the Draconic Ravager dedication, which gives us the additional unarmed attack feat, but that's not important for this build. What is that we now have access to a few feats that we need from that archetype, including our next feat on the free archetype side, which is going to be Delirium Breath. Once per hour, instead of doing damage with our breath weapon, we can make the targets make a will saving throw. On a failed saving throw, they become confused for 1 round, 2 rounds on a critical failure. This is especially going to help us against low will save opponents. Like say that troll that's been giving the party trouble. Let's confuse him, make him attack himself or his buddy troll. Yet confusion should be used a lot more than it is. Then for our other feat at this level, we'll take Courageous Assault. When you use this feat, if your next action is to cast Inspire Courage, then one ally who gains a status bonus from the spell can make a melee attack as a reaction. An enemy not giving the fighter his attack of opportunity? Okay, give him attack of opportunity on your turn, because fighter with extra attacks is always good. So for this video, I'm only going to be doing one teamwork report because it's all pretty simple. Most of it is your basic bard stuff. If your allies need to hit better, use Inspire Courage. If your allies need more defense, go with Inspire Defense. Fighter need an extra attack, go with Courageous Assault. On your dragon side, use breath magic if you need to change the area of one of your divine spells. Use delirium breath on enemies that are giving the party trouble. And stay in your humanoid form as much as possible. Because if enemies know you're a dragon, then they're going to want to come after you. Which, as a bard, is something you do not want. Alright, at level 11 we get a general feat, so we're going to go with toughness to increase our hit points. Then at level 12 we'll start with Enspell the Breath. For 3 actions we can cast a spell and use our dragon breath at the same time. All enemies in the area of our breath weapon are affected by both effects. It does have to be a spell that requires 2 or less actions to cast, but that's like 90% of spells. We are using breath magic for this, so the spell does have to have an area. But there are plenty of good teamwork spells on the divine list that have areas. Moving on, at level 13 we get an Ancestry feat. And we're going to go with Deep Breath. When we use Dragon Breath, we can choose to take a deep breath. If we do, our Dragon Breath deals twice as many D4s. But more importantly, the area of our Dragon Breath increases to a 30-foot cone instead of a 15-foot cone. But once we use this feat, we can't use it again for 1d4 times 10 minutes. This means we can hit more enemies with our Delirium Breath if we want to. At level 14, it's Song of Strength. This will give the entire party a +1 to their athletics checks and a +1 to their DCs against athletics checks. And we do have Inspire Heroics, which means we can use it on this feat. Great buff for anybody that wants to use athletics, including fighters, barbarians, and even ruffian rogues. Then we'll take Lingering Breath. This allows our breath weapon to stick around in the area for 1d4 rounds. The same 1d4 that we use to determine how long it takes to recharge our breath weapon. Most enemies are going to have a tendency to avoid this lingering area. This means they could waste actions going around it instead of through it. Or if we work together with a melee fighter, then we can force them to end their turn in the area and take even more damage. It does only do half the damage that our breath weapon would normally do, but we either force enemies to move around it, thereby wasting actions, or to end their turn in the area and have to save against confusion. For our general feat at 15th, we'll take Die Hard so we don't die. And of course, we get our ability score increases, which we'll want to increase our Strength, Dex, Charisma, and Intelligence. At 16th, we'll pick up first Majestic Spell. If your next action is to cast a spell, that spell appears as the full majesty of a dragon. This makes the spell nearly unrecognizable. Creatures with the ability to cast that spell don't automatically recognize the spell. In addition, creatures that witness your spell casting take a -2 penalty on checks to recall knowledge about the spell and to counteract it. Lastly, you gain a +1 circumstance bonus on intimidation checks against those creatures. If you cast a 6th level or higher spell from spell slots, this intimidation bonus increases to +2. And you can use this feat on any spell. That means you could use it on your divine or occult spells from this build. And then on the free archetype side, we'll take Ravager's Wings. This will give us a fly speed equal to our speed. This will allow us to be in our dragon form a little bit more, since we can now fly out of range of melee attackers. For our 17th level Ancestry feat, we're going to go with Rapturous Revel. Once per day, for 3 actions, we can choose one of the following options for each creature that is within a 30-foot emanation. A +1 status bonus to attack rolls, skill checks, and saving throws for 1 minute. You can attempt to confuse them, or you can attempt to charm them. If you attempt to confuse a target, they must make a will save against, in our case, spell DC. If they fail, they become confused for 1 round, and if they critically fail, they become confused for 1 minute. If you attempt to charm the target, they must make a will save with the normal rules for charming. If they fail, then they become friendly towards you for 1 minute. If they critically fail, then they become helpful to you for 1 minute. Also, the charmed individual can't take hostile actions against you. The charm effect does have the incapacitation traits. At 18th, first we'll pick up Eternal Composition. We become permanently quickened, but we can only use the extra action to cast a composition cantrip that takes 1 action to cast. Also, when we're in exploration mode, we can declare that we are performing any eligible composition cantrip while doing any exploration activity. That means when we get into a combat encounter, that composition cantrip is active as if we had cast it the previous turn. And on the free archetype side, of course, we need to take Master Dragon Mage spellcasting. Again, higher level divine spells that we can work with. Then at 19th, we're just going to take Fleet so that we can increase our land and fly speed. And finally, for level 20, we get our ability score increases as well as a couple of feats. We want to increase our Con, Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma at this level. And then for our first feat at level 20, we'll take Fatal Aria. There really isn't a level 20 feat that's going to help this build, so we'll just take the one that lets us completely take enemies out of the fight by killing them. Yeah, this allows a bard to kill enemies without even a saving throw. If the target is 16th level or lower, it dies instantly. If the target is 17th level, then if it has less than 50 hit points, it dies instantly. Otherwise, it falls unconscious and becomes dying 1. If the target is 18th level or higher, then it takes 50 points of damage, and if that brings it down to 0 hit points, it dies instantly. And our final feat for this build is going to be Draconic Meta Magician. We can now use meta magic single actions from our Dragon Mage archetype feats, or single actions from our Dragon Mage feats that have effects if our next action is Dragon Breath as free actions. So yeah, we can use our Majestic spell for a free action now. Anyway, as for spells, I'm not going to go through a bunch of spells that you need to take for this build because there really isn't a right or wrong answer. But if you want the best teamwork spells, in my opinion, you can check out my best teamwork spells playlist up here in the card. And that's going to do it for this build. Remember to check out the Patreon page if you want Google Sheets for this build and a bunch of other builds. And until next time, remember, teamwork is vital.